Hello, punters, and welcome to the Sunday review show. Of course, I've done this type of thing before, and I'm looking to bring it back onto this channel on a regular basis from here on out. Look, sincerest apologies that I didn't have a racing preview this weekend. I took a bit of a weekend off. I had a couple of interviews that I needed to conduct, which you will see a few of them at the back ends of this video. Obviously, I've got an interview with Gemma Rielly, which I'll be showing towards the end of this video, and I'll be uploading a interview with Lizzie Jels, who was just so good at giving her time, so much of her time for a nice interview there. So I'll be uploading that as a separate video. So stay tuned on this video for Gemma Rielly. If you're keen to just hear her thoughts or you're here for her interview, I'll put that down in the description on where exactly in the video it's going to be coming up. So stay tuned for that one. But obviously this video I'm going to go across yesterday's meetings and have a look at all the races, or just in particular race that that I want to follow out of the meeting, and I think that some of you should perhaps go back and have a look at and mark down into your black books or whatever, and that might be something that we might introduce across the journey. Once again, leave your comments in the description, in the comments section down below. Really enjoy having your comments down there and a good conversation. So if there's any suggestions that you want to make, if there's anything that you guys as viewers want to see, I will look to incorporate that into this type of video. So look, going to start with Flemington yesterday. First race of the day was listed Anzac Day Stakes for the 2-year-olds. I really do think it's going to be a good race going forward to look at in terms of the form. I think there's going to be a lot of good horses to come out of this type of race. Obviously, Flying Award was the winner of the race. 2-year-old colt out of Flying Dancino, and side by Seamus Award for Danny O'Brien, with Damien Oliver in the saddle, who they combined obviously for the first two winners on the card. With Damien Oliver, of course, as well, rode a couple of winners on the day, so they were off to a flying start, and this horse was terrific. It just came down the outside really stylishly, got over the top right on the line. I just like the way it worked through its gears there, and I thought that was a really nice win. Iron Edge and Indictment were both very good up on the inside on the fence. Obviously, they managed to lead for quite a lot of the way, so that I thought there was a lot of merit to their performances. Obviously, got Indictment coming out of a last start performance behind Diala and Tarkula Diva, and also Iron Edge, who was first up after a spell. So I do think there's a bit of form around this horse. Then you got Ain't No Deal Done, who finished in fourth, and It's Hot in fifth. Who It's Hot was the one I was with yesterday, and it was just trying to lay in a bit, so it did a bit wrong, but it still got through the line really nicely. So I do think that that's going to be a form line that we can follow in for. So yesterday's race number 1 at Flemington, could definitely follow a few of those horses out of that race, and obviously Flying Award really looks a smart type, but and it's probably the one to follow in terms of. I do think it's got a lot of progression in it, but I do think there's a lot of merit to those other horses, and if they find good enough races, I think they'll be winning it quite easily. So I think we can find there's going to be a lot of form coming out of that race, race number 1 yesterday at Flemington. Moving on to race number 2 was a 600-metre race, benchmark 84, the fillies and mares, and boy was Novatia good for Danny O'Brien and Damien Oliver, as I mentioned before, a race-to-race double to kick off the program. She has come back really nicely for Danny O'Brien, obviously former Pat Carey horse. She's won first up at Sandown, being Zaydani and Nerve Not Verve, and has come out and franked that form. And the way she got it done yesterday was just so stylish, it's really classy. I do think she's got a lot of ability and potential to grow off of this and go into perhaps listed level and be really competitive. I thought that was a great performance. And look, I was with Cryptic Jewel, who finished second in the race. It was a really good first up performance after a slight freshen up. Obviously, she ran in some really tough races. At Rosehill, she was in the Group 3 opponent stakes, where Missy Beale and Gayatri were 1-2 in that. And then prior to that, she was in the Sweet Professor Trophy at Flemington, where she finished behind Painted Town 2 and Bam's on Fire. We know what Bam's on Fire has done since. So she was wide for quite a lot of that journey in the straight. She was just winding up, getting into her work, and I think she did have every possible chance, but I did like the way that she continued to get to the line, and she was only just run over late by Novatia, who was good. Lamu was a bit of a hard luck story. Couldn't get a run for quite a bit in the straight, and then have managed to get out, poked through, looked to be the winner at one stage till Cryptic Jewel and Novatia came down the outside. But so once again, I do think there's a couple of horses to follow out of that race there. Kingsbrook was quite dominant. Was quite prominent from being on the speed throughout the journey of the race. So considering that a lot of the swoopers came into it, could probably take a bit of merit out of the likes of Kingsbrook, who were on speed and managed to stick on as well. So they all finished quite close together. I think that was a good form race. We're moving to race number 3, and of course we're taking our Kuramai at $37, a big ball over result there. I was quite keen on fundraising the race. Obviously, I saw that during the week it was Scratch from Pakenham as a 2:40 shot taken in this race. It was a little bit disappointing on speed, but it really did set up for some of the horses from midfield and back in the field. We really did see them swoop into the race nicely. Kuramai was one of those who was midfield, came over the top and managed to hold out B Hunter, who absolutely rocketed late. And his definite black book. I don't think it's going to go around at great odds next time round, because that was as good thing a beat as you'll see. She obviously got up towards the inside. He got up towards the inside. Couldn't get through. Took a bit of time to get to the outside, but the splits for that last 200 meters were just incredible. The sections were fantastic. I mean, if we have a look. If we have a look at the sectionals, we have a look at B Hunter, and the last 200 was he ran in 11:67. I mean, that's just phenomenal. Absolutely roared home. It was 0.5 of a second faster than anything. 0.4 of a second almost faster than anything else running home in that last 200 meters. So he was coming home with a real wet sail, and I thought that was a really nice performance by him, and he's definitely going to be one we take into next start. Hayington Station was not one that also came on from the back, and Kiwi Rupp was quite good. Nothing against the leader, Kuramai. The winner, Kuramai, who had a bit of a freshen up coming into that run, but I thought it was in a really nice position in the race, and it was that position in the race that really ultimately won at the race. A couple of those were further back in the field were really flashing home late. Run to Perfection, not sure how to judge its performance. It went round as the favourite yesterday. Obviously, first up, being a former New Zealand horse, where it's got form around Catalyst and Star of Bombay. But I didn't think it was too bad of a performance. I still think that he's going to be one that you want to follow. I still think he's got a lot of ability, a lot of potential. Like we saw, he finished not far behind Catalyst, and we know how good of a horse Catalyst is. So, despite it saying 7th in the books, I'd still be looking at it to follow it in from here on in. I mean, it could be a simple factor that Damon Oliver and Dan O'Brien, surely they couldn't win 3 in a row. So maybe that's all it was to it. But look, this horse did have to carry 61 kilos, so you've got to keep that in mind. Perhaps next start gets a bit of weight relief. And don't think it was, you'll see it on the form guides, the 7th. Don't think it was that bad of a run. So I'll definitely want to follow as well. Looking into race number 4 at Flemington, it was won by Hackey. Of course, the Melbourne Cup winner Valiant Declare went round as a favourite on that occasion. A little bit disappointing, really. He was held up at a crucial stage of the race, in my opinion. He just got stuck behind those tiring leaders, but he got out with enough time to get into his work and really try and show the type of turn of foot that we see at the end of the long distance races that we've seen from him, particularly in the Melbourne Cup. But don't know what it was with him. It'd be interesting to see what the vet report is from the race, and to see what happens with him now, because he got through the line nicely in the end, but he just, in that crucial stage between the 400 and the 300 metres, he just couldn't quite get going. And by then, those swoopers in Hackey had already sort of gone and taken off, and good idea was going past, as was Skelm. So some of those swoopers were really getting past Van der Klee on that occasion, just didn't manage to pick up again. But look, Hackey's always been a really promising galloper, and he deserved that win yesterday. And looking back at it now, I really wish I had have looked more into him, because he's always had the ability. He obviously came over here from the UK. He finished 3rd in the Geelong Cup behind Prince of Arran and True Self. He then went into the Hotham Stakes and ran into it in the Sandown Cup as well. So he's always had the ability. It's just taken a bit of time to get into his work, and that step out to 2,600 metres yesterday was perfect for him, and he was quite dominant in the end. So definitely one to follow. Hackey got lots of ability. Look, I wouldn't jump off Van der Klee, but for me, that's just a little asterisk, because had to carry the 61 kilos, didn't seem to handle it, so you might have to wait till he comes down the weights, or because for me, that, not saying that, no disrespect to the opposition, wasn't an easy race, but and he's anywhere near close to his best form, he wins that race. So it was quite disappointing from him, but we can still follow him out of that, I think. But yeah, look, Hackey's probably the one I want to follow that race. Didn't win, made good ground late. He's a tough, honest horse as well. He always does his thing, goes out and tries his best. He's quite an honour to back more often than not. But Hackey looks the one for me to follow out of that race. The winner, thought it was a terrific performance. I would keep with Van der Klee, because we know what his ability is, but we just have to possibly wait and see now to what type of race he goes in from now on, and what type of weight he might get. Moving on to race number 5, it was the Armitage Handicap for the 3-year-olds. Betcha Flying won the race and returned a bit of form, and returned the type of form that we know that she is capable of. She showed last preparation. She finished 5th behind Paradis and Snap Dancer, and then she went to Randwick in the Adrian Knox, finished behind Colette. Now, it was proved to be pretty good form from Randwick at 2,000 metres. She's the step back to 1,700. She was just too tough and too fit for him. But we looked at last preparation. She finished second to Akari in the Hong Kong Jockey Club Stakes. Obviously, that was in the spring. She finished second to Akari again up at Randwick. So we always knew that she had the ability. It was good to see her put it together yesterday and get the win. So she's definitely one. Excel Man was popping through late. I thought that was a pretty nice run. And Flanders Rain, it's really interesting because I managed to speak to Matt Kamani a couple of mornings ago, and he was obviously with her, she was going to be a tough run for her being out of that wide barrier, and but the way she worked through the line was terrific, and I'll be interested to see what Matt does with her now. That was the first time this preparation that she's stepped out to the 1,700 metres. She's previously been at the 16 and the 14. That for me suggests that she might want a little bit further, so I'll be interested to see what he does with her from there. But I really thought that was an eye-catching run, so definitely one you want to keep an eye on, number 5, Flanders Rain, especially if it drops back in the grades. We now move on into the St. Ledger, of course, in race number 7 at Flemington, and what a race it was. Sacramento and St. Eustace hitting the line together. The drama of, obviously, the protest, which was dismissed in the end, Sacramento holding on, giving Gay Waterhouse and Adrian Bott their 5th win in the St. Ledger race out of the last 8 years. Absolutely dominant, sensational stuff. Gay just continues to, Gay and Adrian just continue to deliver these horses that just continue to be great stayers, and it's really fantastic to see another one in the same colours as Transact last year getting the job done. St. Eustace, though, look, I've got to give it to Sacramento. That was a really nice win, but St. Eustace is the one for me you want to follow. That run was absolutely superb. It was bolting for a run, weaving through the passage, then it got through and just savaged the line late. It was a terrific run. Stepping up from 1,800 to 2,800 metres is not an easy feat, but being out of Tavistock, probably should have seen that it was always going to have the ability to stay that type of distance, and it was a massive run at the big odds of $39. I was really impressed with that. Wahine Toa was another one who was only having its 3rd run in its race career, and to run that well on speed, to run out that 2,800 metres was just really impressive, and I think Kieran Murray and Dave used to be really happy with the horse that they've got there. I've personally always had a bit of time for her. I was keen on her on debut at Pakenham, where she finished 4th. I then took her again into sale at 2,200 metres. Now, I just thought that yesterday, while you've got to obviously trust the trainers, they obviously know what they're doing. I was a little bit concerned about her coming into it off just her 3rd race start, being up to 2,800 metres. But look, she proved me wrong. She was fantastic on speed, and that was a real tough dogged performance by her. And she's definitely one that you want to follow from here on out. I think she's got a big future ahead of her. Nothing against some of the other horses in the race. I thought Chains of Vital was an interesting one because Brett Perrill decided to take off in the race, and I thought it was the right move because in the end it just injected that little bit more speed. And I know some of the horses did come back from back in the field eventually, but they were running so slow at the start that I think it was a bold move, and he had every right to do it. Coin Collector wasn't too bad. I've always had a bit of time for Coin Collector. Thought there could be quite a promising type of horse, but in the end, just got squeezed for room on the pivotal stage, but worked through the line pretty nicely. But look, for me, I'm really keen to follow St. Eustace and Wahine Toa in particular. Wahine Toa is probably the one I want to follow most out race, being the 3rd race start for it. And just the way it managed to just step up in distance from 2,200 to 2,800. Very similar to St. Eustace going from 17 to 2,800 is really impressive when they can perform that well, stepping up that far in distance. Moving on to race number 7, it was the 1,000-metre race. I was quite keen on Milwaukee here, and I thought I was leading quite well all the way. But we saw the return of Brazado, who's always a horse that has showed plenty of promise. I mean, this is famously a horse that beat Nature Strip all those years ago. But it does love the 1,000 metres at Flemington, this horse. So it's not an ultimate surprise that he managed to show what he can do. He's always had the ability. It's just about him getting his right mannerisms and being right on race stakes. He does like to do a lot of things wrong, but he was definitely switched on yesterday, and that was a terrific win. The Inevitable is the one I want to follow. We know how good this horse is. I thought he was fantastic. 1,000 metres is always going to be a bit short of his best. He's going to now potentially go to South Australia. I think I saw Patrick Payne saying, so I'll be interested to see how he will perform. Obviously, the former Scott Brunton runner. We know this horse got a lot of ability. I mean, it's a horse that Went into the Golden Eagle as one of the favourites. Didn't run too well, but prior to that, in the Silver Eagle, beat the likes of Fasika and Mizzy, who really were flying during the spring. So we know he's got a lot of ability, and he's definitely one I want to follow out of that race. Out of every horse in there, he's the one that I want to follow. Number 2, the Inevitable. I thought it was a great run. Moving on to the final race of the card, and Rupture was just too strong for him. This horse looks to be a real interesting one for Paul Prushka, and obviously I think that form's going to stand up okay. I don't think that was too bad of a distance race, that one yesterday, over 1,700. There's a few of these that are looking for a bit further, probably the 2,000 plus, but I think we'll find a few that come out of this race. I really like the performance of Japata. Really made some good ground later. That was, for me, a really impressive performance. Super Titus got through the line pretty nicely. Hangman was quite good. But I do think the winner was really nice, so you've got to take the winner out of that one. But Chapata was another one that I'll probably be keen to see again. The Dude's Art was the favourite in the race. It was a little bit disappointing, but I do think it's got a lot of ability and still worth following. I'll just be probably waiting to see it step out in distance. I was always a bit concerned with that yesterday. I thought 700 would be a bit too short for it. And I'm not sure if that proved to be the case or whether it had a few issues. And I remember Wayne Hawkes was a little bit concerned with the way he was going around to the barriers and the way he was behaving. So we could perhaps forgive that run and look to go at him again next start. So that's the Flemington preview. Just recapping over the horse that I think are worth following out of the meeting. So looking back into race number 1, like I said, I think that's going to be a real strong form line. You could take quite a lot of those horses out of the race. Obviously, Flying Award's the one you really want to follow. But I would be looking to follow Iron Edge and Dickman. Ain't No Deal Done and in its height. I just think that's going to be a really good form line race. So I think you can mark down a lot of those and look to back them next start going forward. Novatia was obviously a very impressive race number 2. Want to be following her out of that race. Lamu was a hard luck story, so you could probably forgive that and follow her in. Moving to race number 3, B Hunter was probably the hard luck story of the day. That was just such an incredible run from where it was. And like I said, those final sectionals were just terrific. So definitely he's the one you want to follow. I don't think he'll go around at a big price next start, but you can definitely look to see him. And obviously Run to Perfection, we know what type of form it's got. So you want to be following him going in. Race number 4, Hackey, like I mentioned, was really ultra impressive. And Van der Cleer, look, we can stick with him because we know his ability, but we're going to have to perhaps now have that bit of a query if he has to carry the type of weight that he did yesterday. Race number 5, Betcha Fly, return to form. Obviously, I think that it's a good horse to follow. Independent Roads always showed a bit of promise, and Flanders Rain, the way it rocketed through the line, I'll be interested to see what McAmoney does with that horse. St. Eustace and Wahine Toa. Sacramento was really strong and dogged, but it did look like it was going to win from a long way out. And St. Eustace and Wahine Toa made it a really interesting race, and they're probably the ones I want to follow out of the St. Ledger. Race number 7. Obviously, the Inevitable, the one for me, was a really nice run by it. First up over 1,000 metres was never going to be ideal for it. And in final race of the card, I think Rupture's one to follow. I thought that was a real impressive dominant on speed performance. And Super Titus and Chapata made some good ground late. And like I said, with the Dude's Art, I think it's got some ability. We're just going to have to wait and see for it in due time. Now, moving into the race, the Rosehill meeting yesterday, of course, was the Hawkesbury Gold Cup, and some really nice horses went around, and I think there's a bit of form to find out of that. One of them was Safiano, who I know that I was listening to the Thoroughbred Central Sky Thoroughbred Central weekly review show this morning, and Lizzie did say that Safiano is one that you probably want to follow. And it's interesting to listen to him say that you look at that race, and you didn't think it was going to be a strong form race, but I think now we can say, yeah, especially Formentura and Safiano, they look two very nice horses, and I think we can follow them. They've got a lot of improvement to come. Moving to race number 2, Welsh Legend stayed on the whole way and was a nice winner in the end. Lure Me In was really making some good ground late. I was quite keen on it yesterday. I ended up going with White Boots, who typically, like at most each way things do, they finished 4th yesterday. But Lure Me In was a nice performance. I was quite taken with the way he hit the line. So he's probably one to follow. Race 3, Grand Piano, just continues to be in form. That was really impressive. All better benchmark 78. He's making his way through the grades, but I think it's got quite a lot of upside, this horse. So yeah, sorry, Grand Piano continues to work his way through the grades, and it's been a really nice horse for John Thompson. This preparation has been ultra consistent. Definitely one to follow as he continues to make his way through the grades out of that race. As for some of the other ones, look, Rapido Chaparro was quite good late. Obviously was trying to cling on. Grand Piano only just got over the top of it, but I thought that was a pretty strong on-pace performance by Rapido Chaparro. Jetski and Impactful were two horses that I was hoping would run better races, so they would be ones that I would like to follow because I do think they've got a bit of upside in them, but they were a little bit disappointing yesterday, so I might hold off on those. Moving on to race number 4, it was the first of the feature race of the day. It's the Hawkesbury Crown, and it was won by Sweet Scandal. And interesting talking to Lizzie, you'll see that interview very shortly. She was speaking about Sweet Scandal, saying that she was really impressed with the way she's come back this preparation. Came out and won really nicely yesterday from that wide barrier. It was a really nice ride by Glenn Boss. He's just so capable of producing these great rides when you think that it's near on impossible for him to win the race. But unfortunately for a lot of people who were within her time, including myself, was hoping for the fairy tale ending for her. Sweet Scandal had to come over the top and ruin that there. But look, it was a good performance by Sweet Scandal, and I think this will be a pretty good form race. We know a lot of these are really nice types. Dyslexic was very good late for the Hawks team. I thought that was for Brent Stanley. It was a really nice run by her, so she's one you would probably want to follow. I've always had a bit of an opinion of her, and she's always been around the mark in these type of grades. So probably Dyslexic, Sweet Scandal, the two I want to follow. Obviously in her time with her retirement, fantastic horse that she has been, and was a shame that it's happened twice in 2 weeks now. Parada last week and her time this week, but look, that's racing. Unfortunately, you can't always get the fairy tale ending, but there was still a terrific run by her. Moving on to race number 5, and it was the Hawkesbury Gold Rush, and over 1,500 metres. And gee, that was an impressive performance by Tactical Advantage. And like I mentioned, make sure you go and check out my interview with Lizzie Jelst, which I'll be uploading later on today. She really wants to follow Tactical Advantage out that race. That was a superb performance by her. Really just motored to the line late. God of Thunder was really good. I was impressed with its performance. Villamai was quite strong on the speed. Graf was poking through late and he was getting towards the line. And interesting for me, Lizzie's quite keen on Resin as well. So we'll take her expert eye on it as she does like to say. She really does. She's one of the best in the business. So I'm going to really trust her with her eye and take her in with that. So Resin is one we want to follow. I really do think it's going to be a good form race. I mean, you look back in the field, All Too Royal, smart, Handle the Truth, quite a smart horse as well. So I do think that this is going to be a nice, strong form race. So, but Tactical Advantage is the one who, I really want to follow the most. Villamai, she just keeps knocking around, performing to a really high standard. And obviously Graf, who was first up in quite a long time, he'll improve off of that run, and I'm sure he'll be much better for it. And he's definitely one I still want to follow. Thought he was looming to win at some point in the straight, around the 300 metres, but he just couldn't quite get that room to get out and really hit the line strongly. But it was still a nice performance for me. Moving now into the next race, and it is the Workers Club Group Hawkesbury Guineas, and it was won so dominantly by Dawn Passage. Now, we know Dawn Passage is a great horse, but that was very impressive yesterday. I was quite taken aback by how good that performance was. I was very keen on him. I was more keen on Bandersnatch, who really got well back late before being scratched. So a bit disappointing they didn't go around. I'd be sticking with Bandersnatch though, because out of the trials for me, has just been a real eye catcher, and he has got a lot of ability. So I'll be keen to keep an eye on him coming out of that race. But Dawn Passage, there was definitely a superb performance. Ice Bath was getting up late, and St. Covert Spirit, he just continues to run around at big odds and continues to run well in these races. Not sure how much longer we'll get those big odds for, but I thought that was a nice performance. One horse who was, for me, a little bit disappointing is Groundswell. He just hasn't quite come out the same horse this preparation for Anthony Freeman. Obviously, last preparation, he was really good in the spring. Was around some very nice horses, obviously the likes of Super Seth and Alligator Blood and Dalasan and the likes, who we know how good those horses are. He just unfortunately hasn't come back the same horse as preparation. So, but you just see if they give him a spell now. I do think he's still got a lot of ability, a lot of talent. Obviously, it was an expensive yearling, but look, he just hasn't quite performed his preparation. It's as simple as that. I don't know if his confidence is gone, but look, we'll stick with him because he's still a good horse, but he was a bit disappointing yesterday. Moving on to into the Gold Cup in race number 7, obviously won by Amagiri. Tough performance by her. She managed to keep fighting on. Another dollar for me was the real eye catcher. Going into that race, I wasn't that taken by its trial, but G ran really well, and I think another dollar is the one I want to follow out of that race. That was a really good way that it came home. Really came nice with a wet sail. I was with Tangled, who finished last in the field. I was a bit disappointed. I know that its first up stats aren't fantastic, and that's why it was such a big price. But the way it trialled in, I thought that maybe he'd come back a really good type after having disappointing preparation last prep. But yeah, he was a little bit disappointing against. I'll stick with him because obviously he wants further distance, similar to the likes of Mask of Time and Aliferous. But yeah, I was hoping for a little bit more from him. But yeah, another dollar for me was the one, Live and Free. Didn't have a whole lot of room in the straight, got out, hit the line well. Once again, a lot of these horses are usually around the mark in these types of listed types of races. So I think it'll be a good form race going forward still, this one. But another dollar for me was the most impressive run in that race. Moving on to race number 8, the final of the day. True Detective was just mowed down the line by Oakfield Missile. It's quite typical of the way the day went for punters yesterday, unfortunately, just a bit of near margins. But for me, Soldier of Love first up was the real eye catch for me. I was very taken back by its performance first up, hit the line nicely. So that Soldier of Love's the one I want to follow out of that race. He had some good form last preparation. If you have a look back, fourth to Adana, beat Chocolatier and Adana, and second to Jazzland, which is decent enough form. And I thought that was a nice run yesterday in what was a decent enough race. Obviously, True Detective, we know, it's been around some good 2-year-old, now 3-year-old races in the past, and the winner of Oakfield Missile was quite fit coming into that race off a first up run where it finished behind through the cracks and ran a duel to that provincial championship form. Really stood up nicely there. So look, for me, Oakfield Missile was impressive. Really did fight back and got up on the rail well. But Soldier of Love was the eye catcher for me late in that piece. Moving now into Morphettville, final little review of the program. Obviously, we've got a big meeting coming up there. We've got the Oaks and the Tab Classic next week. 2 Group 1s. I'll be back to preview those. I promise you I will be back for that. But looking at yesterday's meeting at Morphettville, and any ones that we want to see. Obviously, the first race on the card was a Group 3, and it was the Breeders' Stakes. And it was taken out by a horse by the name of Ecumenical for Huxtable and Ryan Hurdle, and it was a first up win and a good first up win as well. And this is a horse that we might want to follow coming out of this. She was really impressive. The way she let down there, and she won with quite a lot of ease in the end. I mean, 2.2 lengths. So she's the one I want to follow out of that race. Ranting was quite good late in the piece. So Ranting, I think, got a bit of ability as well. Charm School, the favourite, was quite disappointing off its first up debut performance coming that race. Was definitely the wrong price, but was expecting a little bit more from it, so that was a little bit disappointing. Moving on to race number 2, and Fortune Follows won the race there, the Anzac Day Handicap, benchmark 64. Look, a 10 wasn't too bad there, and Fortune Follows was really good late in the piece. A good first up performance. This is a horse that has only finished. It's had 2 wins from 3 race starts, and the race that it didn't win was a 4th benchmark 68 at Gawler, which finished behind 2 horses called Bacaro, and Little Rich Boy, who's been around some decent type of races. So I think that's a stronger than benchmark 64 grade that we can read on paper. So a 10 and Fortune Follows are probably 2 that I'd be looking to follow out of that. Little Rich Boy, of course, was in that race, was a little bit disappointing. Moving on into, I'm going to move down the line and go to a race that really did catch my eye. Race number 5 was the listed Niche Stakes, and Wild Vixen managed to hold off on that race and win that one nicely off a freshen up after a last start 3rd at the Sandown Lakeside behind Street Icon and Lico Paint. We know that Street Icon has since come out and running some good races at 2nd at Caulfield a few weeks ago. So the form is stacking up pretty nicely out of that race now as well. And Wild Vixen was quite impressive in that race. Really discreet, was finding some good work late. Always had a bit of time for this horse, and I know that Phil Stokes has too. There's a horse that will get out over further, so definitely one to follow. I'd be black booking really discreet coming out of that run there. And then also, look, I thought Exodia wasn't too bad, and look, but the 2 that were really disappointing for me were the 2 favourites, Charlize and Night Express. Was expecting a bit more from them. But Really Discreet's probably the one I really want to follow the most out of that race. Obviously short of its best distance range, but still ran really nicely. Moving forward to race number 6, and Phil Stokes didn't have to wait long to get the win in the same colours, and seemingly Discreet got the job done. It continues its winning form. It's really starting to build a bit of a picket fence now. It's had 4 wins in a row now. And I thought that was a really nice performance, that one yesterday. I did it so in quite a nice fashion. Be interested to see whether he really tests it in some good company now. Look, she's obviously got plenty of ability and she knows how to run a good race. Looking at her form throughout her career, she only ever missed the top 3 placing once in her 8 starts. So she looks to be one to follow, being out of Just Discreet and obviously side by Sepoy. So I'll be interested to follow her out of the race. She's probably the one that was most impressive to me. Move on to race number 7, benchmark 68. Look, Poised to Rain was very impressive. I thought that was a good performance by that horse there. Really nice win by her. And look, she might be one, not sure as to what type of race she'll get through. I'm not sure if this is around her mark and her range, but just got to take it on face value. That was an impressive win yesterday, so got to look at that. Race number 8, listed City of Adelaide Handicap. Asian Rook was impressive, got right up on the inside and really ran home nicely. But for me, Aristocratic Miss is the one I want to follow the most. Now, the reason why is it missed the start by a couple of lengths, but really got to the outside, got real wide on the track, was right back, and really did work through the line nicely. And this is a horse that's going to get better over further. Obviously, we've seen its ideal distance range be between 16 and 1200. That was 1400 yesterday, so once it steps out in distance, I think this horse will be winning a nice race, and could even go at a decent odds, I think. I think that race might be looked over. Waging War wasn't too bad either. We know that's a horse with a bit of ability. So I think that form race will be quite decent as well. Moving on to race number 9, it was the Group 3 Furphy Chairman Stakes, and Dallas Am was impressive once again. Look, coming towards the end of his preparation now, I would think he might have one more run in him, but that was ultra impressive. That was the first time that they've stepped him out at this type of distance, and he seemed to relish it really nicely, the 2,000 metres. Moonlight Gambler stuck on nicely for John McArdle, and I think we'll press on now and go into one of those races, perhaps the Derby, the South Australian Derby. I think that's probably the next option. A lot of these, I think, will probably target that race now from out of this. Warning was good, returning back on top of the ground after having a few runs up in New South Wales on wet tracks where it didn't seem to handle it. So probably the top 3 are the ones for me that I want to follow the most. Some of the others we're making, just fair ground late, but the top 3 are definitely the ones I want to follow that race. So we look forward to the next week's meeting, the 2 Group 1s in South Australia as the South Australian Racing Carnival kicks off. Really, obviously the back end of autumn now, but we still have that to look forward to. Stay tuned. I'm about to put up my interview with Gemma Rielly, she's got a horse today called the